10 years, 100 weeks of overtime, countless sacrifices, and there I stood in Harrison Webb's corner office, listening to words that made my blood run cold. Cordelia, effective immediately, my son Austin will be stepping into the Chief Technology Officer role. You'll transition to a senior advisory position, helping him learn the ropes, of course. The Austin skyline stretched behind him through floor-to-ceiling windows. I'd helped build the company that occupied 3 floors of this building. My code formed the foundation of every product we'd shipped. My architecture decisions had scaled us from 12 employees to over 200. And now, a desk job, a babysitting assignment. Ready to coach my kid? Harrison asked the next morning, his tone suggesting this was already settled. I looked at him, really looked at him, and felt something shift inside me. Something that had been bending for years finally snapped into a different shape. Not broken, transformed. No, I said quietly, I quit. His jaw dropped. Welcome to the Payback Office channel, where we share stories of professionals who refuse to let their careers be rewritten by someone else's pen. Real workplace situations, real decisions, real consequences. If these stories resonate with you, consider subscribing and helping us reach 8,000 subscribers. Your support helps us continue sharing these experiences. Hit that subscribe button if you'd like to join this growing community. My name is Cordelia Voss. For the past decade, I served as the Chief Technology Officer at Web Technologies in Austin, Texas. I grew up in a working-class neighborhood where my parents taught me that respect isn't about titles, it's about recognizing the humanity in everyone you meet. That upbringing shaped how I led teams, mentored junior developers, and built something meaningful from the ground up. This is the story of how I walked away from it all, and what happened next. Web Technologies didn't exist when I first met Harrison Webb. Not really. It was an idea scribbled on napkins in a coffee shop on South Congress Avenue, back in early 2014. I was 28 years old, working as a senior developer at a mid-sized firm that built enterprise software. Comfortable job, decent pay, absolutely no excitement. The kind of work where you could feel your skills slowly fossilizing with each passing year. Harrison approached me at a tech meetup. He was 42 then, energetic, full of vision. He'd sold his previous startup, something involving logistics software, and wanted to build a platform that would revolutionize how small and medium businesses managed their operations. Cloud-based, modular, scalable. I need someone who can architect this from scratch, he told me over craft beer at a bar in the warehouse district. Someone who thinks 5 years ahead, 10 years ahead. I've got the business vision and the capital. I need the technical vision. I should have asked more questions, should have requested equity terms in writing, should have done a lot of things. But I was 28 and hungry to build something that mattered. I joined as employee number 3. Harrison was 1. His business partner, Floyd Hutchinson, was 2. Floyd handled sales and marketing. Harrison managed strategy and funding. I built everything else. Those first 2 years were chaos in the best possible way. I worked from a cramped co-working space that smelled like coffee and ambition. I wrote code until 3 in the morning, testing architectures, discarding approaches that wouldn't scale, building frameworks that could support the company we wanted to become, not just the company we were. By month 6, we had our first prototype. By month 10, our first paying customer. By the end of year 1, we had 14 clients and were generating enough revenue that Harrison could bring on additional developers. That's when my role evolved. I wasn't just coding anymore. I was hiring, training, building a team, making architectural decisions that would affect every product we built. Harrison gave me the CTO title at the 18-month mark. No fanfare, just a matter-of-fact email. Your new business cards will say Chief Technology Officer. It's what you've been doing anyway. Might as well make it official. Looking back, I should have noticed that he gave me responsibility without proportional equity. Should have pushed harder during those early conversations about ownership stakes. But I was building, creating, leading a team that grew from 3 developers to 8, then 15, then 30. The platform we created, WebOS we called it, became genuinely useful. It helped small businesses manage inventory, track customers, handle invoicing, coordinate teams. Nothing revolutionary in concept, but our execution was clean. Our user experience was intuitive. Our reliability was rock solid. Clients stayed, new clients signed up, we grew. By year 3, we'd moved into a proper office. By year 5, we'd expanded to 2 floors. By year 7, we were fielding acquisition offers from larger tech companies. Harrison always said no to those offers. "We're building something lasting," he'd tell the leadership team during our quarterly meetings. "We're not flipping this for a quick exit. We're building a legacy." I believed him. I believed in the vision. I believed that my contributions mattered, that my role was secure, that the company I'd helped build would continue to value what I brought to the table. I was wrong. Austin Webb, yes, the city and the sun shared a name, which gave rise to endless confusing conversations. Graduated from the University of Texas in May 2023. Business degree. Decent grades, from what I understood. No technical background. Harrison mentioned during a leadership meeting in June that Austin would be joining the company. Entry-level business analyst role, Harrison said. I want him to learn the business from the ground up. No special treatment. I actually respected that. Too many founders' kids parachuted into executive roles without understanding the fundamentals. If Austin was starting at the bottom, maybe he'd develop genuine skills. Austin started in July, 22 years old, eager, friendly enough. He sat in on product meetings, shadowed different departments, asked questions that ranged from surprisingly insightful to painfully naive. I didn't interact with him much. Our worlds didn't overlap significantly. He was learning about customer acquisition funnels and market positioning. I was managing a team of 43 developers and overseeing our transition to a new microservices architecture. But I noticed things, small things. Austin had access to meetings that other business analysts didn't attend. Harrison would pull him into strategic discussions about company direction, future products, potential partnerships. Nothing inappropriate, exactly, but definitely more exposure than a typical entry-level employee received. By October, Austin had moved from business analyst to special projects coordinator, a vague title that seemed designed to justify his presence in high-level meetings. By January 2024, he was director of strategic initiatives. Floyd Hutchinson, Harrison's original business partner, pulled me aside one day in February. We were in the break room, and Floyd had the tired look of someone who'd been arguing a losing battle. "How's the new architecture rollout going?" he asked, but his tone suggested he wanted to talk about something else. "On schedule," I said. "The team's adapting well to the microservices approach." Floyd nodded absently. "Harrison's been talking about succession planning lately, says he wants to start thinking about the company's leadership for the next decade." Something in his voice made me pay attention. Succession planning? Harrison's only 52. He's got years left if he wants them. That's what I said. Floyd dumped his coffee, still half full, into the sink. "Just keep your eyes open, Cordelia. Things are shifting." He left before I could ask what he meant. I should have pressed him for details, should have read between the lines more carefully. Instead, I went back to work. We were 3 months from launching our biggest product update ever, WebOS 4. I had code reviews to complete, architecture decisions to finalize, team conflicts to mediate. I was too busy building to notice the ground shifting beneath me. The leadership team met every Monday at 9 o'clock. Harrison, Floyd, myself, our CFO Monica Brennan, our head of sales Timothy Rhodes, and our director of customer success, Pamela Cho. The meeting on March 18, 2024, started normally enough. Timothy reported on Cone sales numbers, up 17% year-over-year. Monica walked through our financial position, healthy, sustainable, with enough runway to fund our planned expansions. Pamela discussed customer retention metrics, strong, with particularly good feedback about our support team's responsiveness. Then Harrison cleared his throat in that particular way. That meant he had something significant to announce. "I want to talk about organizational structure," he said. "We've grown tremendously over the past decade. 214 employees now. Revenue approaching 30 million annually. We're not a startup anymore. We're an established company, and we need to think about what that means for how we're led. I glanced at Floyd. He was staring at the table. I've spent considerable time thinking about sustainability and succession, Harrison continued. And I've decided to make some changes to our executive team structure. Effective April 1st, Austin will be stepping into the role of Chief Technology Officer. The words landed like a physical blow. I heard Monica inhale sharply. Timothy's pen stopped moving across his notepad. Cordelia, Harrison said, turning to me with a smile that probably seemed warm to him, you've done extraordinary work building our technology foundation. Nobody disputes that. But as we scale, I think we need fresh perspectives in leadership. Austin brings new energy and a strategic mindset that complements your technical expertise. Fresh perspectives, new energy, the words you use when you can't say, he's my son and I want to give him your job. What role would I be transitioning to? I kept my voice level, professional, even though I wanted to flip the conference table. Senior Technology Advisor, Harrison said. You'd work closely with Austin, helping him understand our architecture, our code base, our team dynamics. Your experience would be invaluable in getting him up to speed. Austin doesn't have a technical background, I said, still calm, still professional. He's been here 9 months, none of them in an engineering capacity. How would he oversee a team of 43 developers working on complex distributed systems? He'll learn, Harrison said, with your guidance. That's exactly why we need you in this advisory role. I looked around the table. Monica looked uncomfortable. Timothy was studying his notepad like it contained the secrets of the universe. Pamela met my eyes briefly, then looked away. Floyd was still staring at the table. This is effective April 1st, I asked. Yes, 2 weeks from today. That'll give us time to make the announcement to the broader team and begin the transition process. The meeting continued. Other topics were discussed. I don't remember any of them. I sat there, nodding occasionally, while my brain processed what had just happened. 10 years? I'd given this company 10 years. I'd built the technology platform from scratch. I'd hired and trained every developer on the team. I'd made the architectural decisions that allowed us to scale. I'd spent weekends debugging critical issues and nights redesigning systems to support new features. And I was being replaced by a 22-year-old with a business degree whose primary qualification was his last name. The meeting ended. Everyone filed out except Harrison, who gestured for me to stay. I know this is a big change, he said once we were alone, but I hope you can see the opportunity here. Less day-to-day management stress, more time to focus on big-picture technical strategy. And honestly, Cordelia, you've been running hard for a decade. Maybe it's time to shift to something less demanding. Less demanding, as if I'd asked for that, as if I'd shown any sign of wanting to step back. I need to think about this, I said. Of course, take the rest of the day if you need it, but I'm hoping you'll embrace this transition. Austin's going to need your expertise, and the company needs continuity during this change. I left his office and went back to my desk. Then I left the building entirely and walked along the river trail until my hands stopped shaking. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at my ceiling, running through scenarios. Option 1, accept the demotion. Stay on as Senior Technology Advisor. Spend my days explaining to Austin how things worked while he collected the CTO title and salary. Watch my team, the team I'd built, report to someone who couldn't tell Python from JavaScript. Option 2, fight, push back. Argue that this was unjust, that Austin wasn't qualified, that Harrison was making a catastrophic mistake. Maybe rally allies, maybe threaten to leave if the decision wasn't reversed. Option 3, walk away. Quit. Update my resume and find a new position where my contributions would be valued rather than transferred to the boss's son like a family heirloom. Each option had consequences, each one left scars. I thought about my team, developers who trusted my leadership, who'd grown under my mentorship. What would happen to them under Austin's management? Would they leave? Would the quality of our work decline? Would the architecture, I'd carefully built a road under someone who didn't understand its principles. I thought about the product. WebOS 4 was scheduled to launch in June, 3 months away. I'd been overseeing every aspect of that release. The new features, the performance improvements, the security enhancements. What would happen if I left? I thought about myself, about the career I'd built, about the fact that I was 38 years old and had just been demoted to make room for the founder's son. If I accepted this, what message did that send? That I was okay being sidelined, that I valued stability over self-respect. By 3 a.m, I'd made my decision. By 6, I'd updated my resume and sent it to 3 recruiters I trusted. By 8, I was showered, dressed, and driving to the office with a strange sense of calm. Harrison arrived at 8:30. I saw him walk past my office toward his own. I gave him 10 minutes to settle in, then I walked down the hall and knocked on his open door. Cordelia? He looked up from his laptop with a smile. Good morning, I'm glad you're here. I thought we could start planning the transition timeline. I'd like to announce the change to the development team by Friday, and then. I'm resigning, I said. He blinked, I'm sorry. I'm resigning. I'm giving you 2 weeks' notice, effective immediately. I'll document critical systems, transition my direct reports, and make sure nothing falls through the cracks. But I won't be staying on as an advisor to Austin. Cordelia, let's not be hasty. I'm not being hasty. I'm being clear. You're asking me to step aside so your son can have my job. I understand that's your right as the founder and majority shareholder. But it's also my right to decide. I don't want to participate in that scenario. Harrison stood up, his expression shifting from surprise to something harder. You're upset, I get that, but think about what you're doing. You're walking away from a company you helped build, from a team that depends on you, from a very generous salary and benefits package. I am thinking about it, I said. That's why I'm leaving. This company doesn't depend on me. If it did, you wouldn't be replacing me with someone who has 0 technical background, and I can find another generous salary. What I can't find is another decade to invest in a place that sees me as disposable. Nobody said you were disposable. You literally disposed of me yesterday. You took my role and gave it to Austin. Now you're asking me to train him to do a job he's not qualified for while pretending this is some kind of opportunity for me. I'm not interested. Silence filled the office. Outside the window, Austin's morning traffic hummed along the highway. Is this negotiable? Harrison asked finally. If it's about money. It's not about money. Then what would it take for you to stay? I almost laughed. Almost. Harrison, you've made your decision. You want Austin in the CTO role. I respect that this is your company and your choice. But you can't have both Austin as CTO and me in my current role. You chose Austin, so I'm choosing to leave. His jaw tightened. I have to say, I'm disappointed. I thought you had more loyalty than this. And there it was, the argument that people always made when you refused to accept mistreatment. Loyalty as a one-way street. I've been loyal for 10 years, I said quietly. I worked weekends and late nights. I turned down job offers from your competitors. I poured myself into building something I thought we all owned, at least in spirit. But loyalty has to run both directions, Harrison. And the moment you decided to push me aside for your son, you broke that contract. Ready to coach my kid? He asked, one last attempt at framing this as reasonable. No, I said, I quit. His jaw dropped. I turned and walked out of his office. Word spread fast. By noon, the entire development team knew I was leaving. By end of day, most of the company had heard. The reactions varied. Some people were shocked. Monica, the CFO, stopped by my office looking genuinely distressed. Tell me you're joking, she said. Not joking. He's really replacing you with Austin. He really is. She sat down heavily in my visitor chair. This is insane. Austin's a nice kid, but he's a kid with no technical background. How is this supposed to work? Harrison seems to think I'll stay on and guide him through everything. But you're leaving. I'm leaving. Monica shook her head. I give it 6 months before half the dev team follows you out the door. Some people were supportive. Timothy from sales bought me coffee and said he'd be happy to serve as a reference. Pamela from customer success told me that any company would be lucky to have me. Some people were opportunistic. A couple of senior developers immediately started positioning themselves as potential interim leaders, volunteering to help with the transition, making sure their names came up in conversations about who would fill the gap I was leaving. And some people were quiet. They kept their heads down, worried that too much association with me might taint them in Harrison's eyes. Floyd didn't say much, but he left a bottle of good bourbon on my desk with a note. "You made the right call." Austin himself came to see me on day 3 of my notice period. He stood in my doorway looking uncomfortable, his hands shoved in his pockets. "Can we talk?" he asked. "Sure." He came in and sat down. For a long moment, he just looked at his shoes. "I didn't ask for this," he said finally. "I mean, I knew Dad wanted me to eventually take on more responsibility, but I didn't. I didn't think he'd do it like this." I waited. "I told him I'm not ready to be CTO," Austin continued. "I told him I don't have the technical background. He said I'd learn on the job, that leadership is more about vision than code." He finally met my eyes. "I'm guessing you disagree with that assessment." "Leadership in a technical role requires technical credibility," I said. "You can't effectively manage developers if you don't understand what they're doing. You can't make good architectural decisions if you don't understand the trade-offs involved. You can't earn respect from a team of engineers if they know you can't do what they do." "That's what I thought." He slumped in his chair. "I asked Dad to reconsider. He said you were being unreasonable and that any good leader would support company transitions gracefully." "Did he?" "Yeah," Austin rubbed his face. "Look, I get why you're leaving. I'd probably do the same thing. I just wanted you to know that I don't think this is right either." "Then don't take the job," I said. "He's my father." "I know." "If I say no, he'll think I'm not committed, not ambitious, not willing to step up when opportunities come." "Then take the job," I said. "But understand what you're walking into. You'll be managing a team of 43 people, most of whom have more experience than you. You'll be making decisions about architecture and technology stack without the background to evaluate those decisions properly. You'll be representing the technical side of the business to clients and investors who will ask you questions you won't know how to answer." Austin's face paled slightly. "You'll also be doing all of this with everyone knowing you got the role because of your last name," I continued. "Some people will resent you. Some will try to manipulate you because they think you're inexperienced. Some will leave. And all of that will be happening while you're trying to learn enough to do the job competently." "You're really painting a picture here," Austin muttered. "You asked for honesty." "I guess I did." He stood up. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry. You built something impressive here. I wish I was inheriting it under different circumstances." "Yeah," I said, "me too." He left. I went back to documenting our database architecture for whoever would end up actually doing the technical work Austin couldn't do. My last day was April 1st, appropriate somehow. I'd spent the previous 2 weeks in a documentation frenzy. I wrote guides for every major system. I recorded video walkthroughs of critical processes. I held knowledge transfer sessions with senior developers, making sure they understood not just how things worked, but why we'd built them that way. I also had exit interviews scheduled with HR and with Harrison. The HR interview was professional and pointless. Veronica Chen from Human Resources, no, wait, different name. Veronica Marsh from Human Resources asked me standard questions about my experience with the company and reasons for leaving. I gave diplomatic answers. She thanked me for my service. We both knew it was theater. The meeting with Harrison was tenser. "I was hoping you'd reconsider during these 2 weeks," he said when I sat down in his office for the last time. "I haven't." "We could still work something out. A consulting arrangement, maybe. You could work remotely, bill by the hour, advise Austin without the pressure of a full-time role." "No, thank you." Harrison leaned back in his chair, studying me. "You know what I think? I think you're making this about ego. You're upset that someone else is getting the CTO title, and you're willing to burn bridges and abandon your team rather than accept a different role. I could have argued, could have explained again that this wasn't about ego, it was about being valued, about not accepting a demotion to make room for nepotism, about having enough self-respect to walk away from a situation that had become untenable. But I was done explaining myself to Harrison Webb. If that's what you think, then I definitely made the right decision to leave, I said instead. His expression hardened. Don't expect a glowing reference. I expect a factual reference. I was CTO for 8.5 years. I built your technology platform from scratch. I scaled the team from 3 developers to 43. I led the development of every product you've shipped. Those are facts, Harrison. You can choose not to mention them in reference calls, but that says more about you than it does about me. We'll see how you do out there, without the Webb Technologies name behind you. I guess we will. I stood up, extended my hand. Harrison shook it, but his grip was perfunctory. Good luck with the 4 launch, I said. You'll need it. I walked out of his office, collected the few personal items from my desk. A framed photo, a coffee mug my team had given me, the bourbon Floyd left, and headed for the elevator. As I waited for the doors to open, I looked back at the office space. The desks where my team sat coding. The conference rooms where we debated architectural approaches. The whiteboard still covered in diagrams from our last planning session. I'd built this, not the physical space, but the capability it represented, the technology, the team, the culture of excellence and continuous improvement. And I was walking away from it. The elevator doors opened. I stepped inside. The doors closed. And just like that, I was no longer the CTO of Webb Technologies. I took a week off before starting my job search in earnest. I needed space to process what had happened, to separate my identity from a role I'd held for nearly a decade. It helped that recruiters started calling almost immediately. I'd sent my resume to 3 recruiters I'd worked with before. They'd each placed it with their networks. Within days, I had preliminary conversations scheduled with 4 companies. Within 2 weeks, I had formal interviews lined up. The conversations followed a pattern. Hiring managers would review my background, express enthusiasm about my experience, then eventually ask, "So, why are you leaving Webb Technologies? It looks like you've been there a long time." I'd crafted an answer that was both honest and diplomatic. The company is going through a leadership transition, and I felt it was the right time to look for new challenges. After 10 years, I'm excited to apply what I've learned in a new environment. Most interviewers accepted that explanation. Some pressed for details. I never badmouthed Harrison or Webb Technologies. I simply reiterated that the company was moving in a different direction, and I was looking for the right fit for the next phase of my career. 3 weeks after my last day at Webb Technologies, I had 2 job offers. One was from a fintech startup in San Francisco, fully remote, competitive salary, significant equity stake, opportunity to build another engineering team from near scratch. The other was from an established e-commerce company based in Seattle, hybrid role, excellent benefits, larger team, more resources, chance to work on systems at massive scale. Both were good options. Both represented clear steps forward in my career. I was still weighing the offers when Floyd called me. "How's unemployment treating you?" he asked. "I'm not exactly unemployed. I've got 2 offers I'm considering." That was fast. Turns out a decade of CTO experience is marketable. Who knew? Floyd laughed, but it sounded strained. "Can I buy you lunch? I want to talk to you about something." We met at a barbecue place on the east side. Floyd looked tired, more tired than I'd ever seen him. "How are things at Webb?" I asked after we'd ordered. "Falling apart," Floyd said bluntly. "Austin's in over his head. 3 senior developers have quit in the past 3 weeks. The 4 launch got pushed back to August because nobody can make decisions without you there to clarify the architecture. Customer support is fielding complaints about bugs that aren't getting fixed fast enough because the development team is in chaos." "I'm sorry to hear that." "Are you?" Floyd gave me a wry smile. "Because if I were you, I'd be enjoying some schadenfreude right about now." I'm not happy the company is struggling, I said carefully. I invested too much in building it to want it to fail, but I'm also not surprised that removing the person who understood the technology best created problems. Harrison's in denial. He keeps saying it's just transition pains, that things will stabilize once Austin gets up to speed. Floyd took a long drink of his iced tea. I tried to tell him this would happen. I argued against the whole succession plan. He wouldn't listen. Why are you telling me this, Floyd? Because I'm leaving too. That surprised me. Floyd had been there from the beginning, earlier than me. He and Harrison had founded Web Technologies together. I can't watch him run this company into the ground, Floyd continued. And I definitely can't watch him scapegoat everyone else when his nepotism experiment fails. I'm cashing out my equity and starting my own consulting practice. I've already got 3 clients lined up. Good for you, I said and meant it. The reason I wanted to talk to you is, I'd like you to be one of those clients. I raised my eyebrows. Hear me out, Floyd said. I'm focusing on go-to-market strategy and business development, but most of my potential clients are tech companies. They need someone who can evaluate their technical operations, advise on architecture and team structure, help them scale their development capacity. Someone with exactly your background. You want me to join your consulting practice? As a partner, Floyd said. Equal equity, we'd build this together. You'd handle the technical consulting side. I'd handle the business development side. We'd both participate in client work and strategy. It wasn't an offer I'd anticipated. I'd been thinking in terms of finding another CTO role, joining another company, building another team. I've already got 2 job offers on the table, I said. I know, and they're probably both good opportunities. But think about this, you'd be your own boss. You'd work with multiple companies instead of pouring all your energy into one. You'd have equity from day one. And you wouldn't have to worry about some founder's kid pushing you out after you've built something successful. That last point landed hard. I need to think about it, I said. Of course, take your time. Well, not too much time. I'm hoping to launch by June 1st, but I wanted you to know the option was there. We finished lunch talking about other things, industry trends, mutual friends, the best way to smoke brisket. But my mind was already turning over Floyd's proposal. By the time I got home, I'd made my decision. Floyd and I officially launched Hutchinson Voss Consulting on June 15, 2024. We kept things lean at first. No office, we'd both work from home and meet clients at their locations or in co-working spaces. No employees beyond the 2 of us. Minimal overhead. Our first client was a health tech startup in Dallas that needed help scaling their development team from 5 engineers to 20. I spent 3 weeks with them, assessing their architecture, identifying bottlenecks, recommending process improvements, and helping them interview and hire senior developers. They paid us $25,000 for that engagement. Our second client was a logistics company in Houston that had built their platform with a patchwork of technologies and was drowning in technical debt. I developed a 2-year roadmap for modernizing their systems without disrupting their ongoing operations. They paid us $38,000 for that engagement. By August, we had 5 clients. By October, we had 9. Floyd was brilliant at business development, attending conferences, nurturing relationships, identifying companies that needed our help. I focused on delivery, doing the actual consulting work, building frameworks and processes we could reuse across clients, developing our methodology. We made a good team. Floyd's extroversion balanced my introversion. His big-picture thinking complemented my detail orientation. His optimism countered my skepticism. And neither of us had to worry about being pushed aside for the boss's son, because we were the bosses. The work was challenging in different ways than being a CTO had been. Instead of going deep with one company, I was going broad across multiple companies. Instead of managing one team, I was advising many teams. Instead of making decisions, I was helping others make better decisions. I loved it. In October, I got a LinkedIn message from Monica Brennan, the former CFO at Web Technologies. I don't know if you've heard, she wrote, but I left Web last month. Harrison and I had increasingly different views about the company's direction. I wanted to let you know that I've joined a SaaS company here in Austin as their CFO, and we're looking for someone to lead our technical operations. If you're interested in talking, I'd love to reconnect. I replied thanking her, but explaining that I was committed to building the consulting practice with Floyd. Her response came an hour later, completely understand. For what it's worth, you made the right call leaving when you did. Things have gotten worse since you left. I didn't ask for details, didn't need to. Web Technologies was my past. Hutchinson Voss Consulting was my present and future. Segment 10, The Collapse. In December, I got a call from one of my former developers at Web Technologies. Damien Torres had been one of my strongest senior engineers, thoughtful, skilled, excellent at mentoring junior team members. I wanted to give you a heads up, Damien said after we'd exchanged pleasantries. I'm putting in my notice tomorrow. I'm joining that fintech company you were talking to. Yeah, they reached out to me after they hired my colleague who left Web in September. Anyway, I thought you should know that I'm the 17th developer to leave since you resigned. 17, out of a team of 43. How's Austin handling it? I asked. He's barely in the office. Harrison's brought in an interim CTO, some guy from one of his investor networks. But the new guy doesn't understand our code base, so he keeps making decisions that create more problems than they solve. It's a mess, Cordelia. The 4 release finally shipped in November, but it was so buggy that we've spent the past month just doing damage control. I'm sorry it's been rough. Don't be sorry, you warned us this would happen. Some of us didn't believe it, but you were right. Damien paused. Actually, the other reason I'm calling, are you taking on new consultants at your firm? Because there are at least 5 developers still at Web who have asked me about you, wondering if you might have opportunities. I wasn't set up to hire employees yet, but I took their names anyway and promised to reach out when we scaled up. After I hung up with Damien, I sat at my desk thinking about Web Technologies, about the team I'd built and the culture I'd cultivated, about how quickly it had all unraveled once the foundation was removed. Part of me felt vindicated. I'd told Harrison this would happen. I'd warned that you couldn't replace technical leadership with nepotism and expect good results. But part of me just felt sad. I'd loved that team. I'd loved building WebOS. I'd loved the work. Harrison had taken something good and broken it, because he couldn't separate what was best for the company from what he wanted for his son. In January 2025, Floyd forwarded me an article from a local tech publication. The headline read, Web Technologies acquired by enterprise software giant Cloudforce Systems. The article explained that after a difficult year marked by leadership transitions and talent departures, Web Technologies had accepted an acquisition offer. Harrison Webb would stay on for 6 months to facilitate the transition, then step down. Austin Webb had left the company in November to pursue other opportunities. The purchase price wasn't disclosed, but sources suggested it was significantly lower than the valuation Web Technologies had commanded a year earlier. Well, Floyd wrote in his email, that's the end of that chapter. I read the article twice, then closed the browser. He was right, that chapter was over. By March 2025, 1 year after I'd resigned from Web Technologies, Hutchinson Voss Consulting had grown beyond anything I'd initially imagined. We had 14 active clients across 6 states. We'd brought on 3 additional consultants, 2 technical, 1 focused on project management. We'd moved into a small office space, though we still worked remotely most of the time. Our revenue for the first 9 months of operation exceeded $600,000. After expenses and paying our consultants, Floyd and I each cleared more than I'd made as CTO at Web. More importantly, I was building something I actually controlled, something where my contributions couldn't be erased by a founder's whim. I was also getting calls from companies interested in me as a full-time CTO again. Apparently, the combination of a decade building Web Technologies and successfully launching a consulting practice made for an attractive resume. I turned down those offers. I wasn't interested in putting myself back in a position where someone else controlled my trajectory. In April, I got an unexpected email. From Austin Webb. "Hi Cordelia," it read. "I hope this message finds you well. I've been doing a lot of reflecting over the past year, and I wanted to reach out and apologize. You were right about everything. I wasn't ready to be CTO. I didn't have the background or experience, and my taking that role contributed to the downfall of something you'd built over a decade. I'm sorry for my part in that. I'm back in school now, getting a master's in computer science. I figured if I'm ever going to work in tech, I should actually understand technology. Anyway, I just wanted you to know that I recognize what happened wasn't fair to you, and I wish I'd handled things differently. Best, Austin." I read the email several times. I could have ignored it, could have filed it away as too little, too late. Instead, I replied, "Austin, I appreciate you reaching out. What happened at Webb wasn't entirely your fault. Your father put you in an impossible position. I'm glad you're pursuing technical education. That's exactly what you should be doing if you want to work in this field. I wish you the best with your studies. Cordelia." Short, professional, but genuine. Because holding on to anger about what Harrison had done didn't serve me anymore, I'd moved past it, built something new. That's what growth looked like. Sometimes late at night, when I'm reviewing proposals or planning client engagements, I think about that moment in Harrison's office. Ready to coach my kid. No, I quit. I think about all the ways that conversation could have gone differently. All the versions of myself that might have said yes, accepted the demotion, stayed on as an advisor. That version of me would still be at Webb Technologies, or whatever Cloudforce Systems renamed it after the acquisition. That version would have spent months, maybe years, watching Austin struggle, cleaning up his mistakes, propping up his leadership while receiving none of the credit. That version would have been safe, comfortable, even, still employed, still collecting a steady paycheck. But that version would have been diminished, would have internalized the message that her decade of contributions could be casually reassigned to someone less qualified, would have taught herself that accepting disrespect was the price of stability. I'm glad I'm not that version. The version I became, the one who walked away, who took a risk, who built something new, she's not diminished. She's not safe, exactly. Consulting is less stable than a salaried CTO position. Some months are feast, some are relative famine. There's no comfortable predictability. But she's free. She controls her own career. She works with clients who value her expertise because they're paying for it directly. She's building equity in something that can't be taken away by a founder's nepotism. That's worth more than safety. I've learned things this past year that I never would have learned staying at Webb Technologies. I've learned that I'm more resilient than I thought. That walking away from something I'd built for a decade didn't destroy me, it redirected me. I've learned that my identity isn't tied to one company or one role. I'm not Cordelia Voss, CTO of Webb Technologies. I'm Cordelia Voss, technologist, leader, builder. The companies and titles are temporary. The skills and character are permanent. I've learned that sometimes the most professional thing you can do is quit. That loyalty to yourself has to come before loyalty to any organization. That you teach people how to treat you, and accepting a demotion would have taught Harrison that I was willing to be treated as disposable. And I've learned that the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's building something better. Floyd and I are planning to scale Hutchinson Voss Consulting significantly over the next 2 years. We're developing proprietary frameworks for technology assessment and team development. We're exploring the possibility of creating software tools to support our consulting methodology. We're thinking about eventually building a platform business, not unlike what Webb Technologies was, but structured so that the people who build it actually own it. Maybe that'll work, maybe it won't, maybe we'll pivot to something completely different. But whatever happens, it'll be our decision, our company, our future. That's the real payback. Not Harrison's company failing, though I won't pretend I didn't feel a certain grim satisfaction when I heard about the acquisition at a discounted valuation. Not Austin struggling in a role he wasn't prepared for. though I do think the experience taught him some valuable lessons. The real payback is this. Harrison thought he could replace me easily. Thought that my contributions were transferable, that the role mattered more than the person in it, that his son could step into the position I'd built and everything would continue smoothly. He was wrong. And I got to build something better while proving him wrong. Today, I'm sitting in a coffee shop in downtown Austin, preparing for a meeting with a potential new client. They're a machine learning startup that's raised a Series A and needs to scale their engineering team from 8 to 30 over the next year. My laptop is open to our standard consulting proposal template. My notebook contains preliminary notes from my initial conversation with their CEO. My coffee is still hot. In about 20 minutes, I'll meet with their leadership team and discuss how Hutchinson Voss Consulting can help them avoid the scaling pitfalls that trap most fast-growing tech companies. I'll talk about the importance of strong technical leadership, about building culture intentionally, about making architectural decisions that support growth rather than hinder it. I'll talk about these things with the authority of someone who's done it successfully, and who's also seen what happens when companies prioritize the wrong things. The CEO already told me they were impressed by my background. 10 years as CTO at Web Technologies, she said during our phone call. That's exactly the kind of experience we need. I didn't correct her timeline. Technically, it was 8.5 years as CTO, preceded by 18 months as a senior developer and architect. Close enough. I also didn't tell her why I left. Didn't need to. My leaving Web Technologies positioned me to be available for opportunities like this one. My phone buzzes, text from Floyd, meeting at 2 p.m. with potential client in Denver. Tech company, 50 engineers, need help with organizational structure. Just thought you'd like to know, they specifically asked for you after seeing your presentation at that conference last month. I smile and text back, great, send me the details. This is what success looks like now. Not one company, one team, one decade-long commitment that can be erased by a founder's decision. Multiple clients, multiple projects, multiple streams of impact and income. I check the time, 15 minutes until my meeting. I review my notes one more time, thinking about the advice I'll give this startup. The same advice I wish someone had given Harrison Webb before he decided to replace competence with nepotism. Value the people who build your success. Recognize that leadership roles require relevant expertise. Understand that stability comes from respecting your team, not from assuming they're too loyal or too comfortable to leave. And remember that every person has a breaking point, a moment when they realize that staying diminishes them more than leaving ever could. Harrison found my breaking point, asked me to step aside and train his unqualified son, asked me to accept becoming less so Austin could become more. I said no. I quit. And I built something better. That's the story, that's the lesson, that's the payback. Not revenge, not bitterness, not even justice, really. Just the simple, powerful act of knowing your worth and refusing to accept less than you deserve. The machine learning startup became a client. We worked with them for 8 months, helping them scale their team and avoid the mistakes that sink most fast-growing tech companies. They're thriving now. Web Technologies became CloudForce Platform Solutions after the acquisition. Most of the original team is gone. The product I built still runs, modified, updated, but fundamentally based on the architecture I designed. I don't check in on them anymore. Don't need to, that's the past. Hutchinson Voss Consulting is the present. We just hired our 7th consultant. We're projecting revenue of $1.8 million this year. We're exploring acquisition offers of our own, though Floyd and I aren't ready to sell yet. We're still building. I'm still building. Some former colleagues ask me if I regret leaving when I did. If I wish I'd stayed, fought harder, tried to make it work. The answer is simple, no. I regret nothing. Walking away from Web Technologies was the best career decision I ever made. Not because the company failed, though the outcome certainly validated my concerns, but because leaving taught me something essential about myself. I'm not someone who accepts being diminished. I'm not someone who prioritizes stability over self-respect. I'm not someone who stays where I'm not valued, even if leaving is harder, scarier, less certain. I'm someone who builds, who creates value, who leads with competence and integrity. And I'm someone who knows when to walk away. Harrison Webb taught me that lesson, though not in the way he intended. When he asked me to step aside for Austin, he thought he was managing a personnel transition. What he actually did was free me to become something more than I'd been, more independent, more resilient, more clear about what I would and wouldn't accept. So in a strange way, I owe him thanks. Not for what he intended to do, demote me, replace me, reduce me to an advisor role supporting his unqualified son. But for what he actually did, push me into becoming the version of myself that refuses to be pushed. That's the version sitting in this coffee shop today. The version who owns her own company, controls her own future, and never has to worry about being replaced by the boss's kid. That's the version who said, "No, I quit." And meant it. If you found value in this story, I'd appreciate your support. Please consider subscribing to help us continue growing toward our goal of 8,000 subscribers. These workplace stories matter, and your subscription helps us share more of them. Thank you for listening. This is Cordelia Voss, and this was my story of walking away and building something better.